So let me know
Awesome.
if
Good
it's
morning
still
times too. Let's
good
do it again.
morning. I was on like a chat room the other day and somebody said good morning and I said it was like night. And they sent me this link where there's this whole like internet lexicon where you just say good morning even if it's nighttime because it's always good morning for somebody or something. I don't know.
That's
It's
fair.
weird. Anyway. Um yeah, I feel like at this point there's no point really to do too much of an introduction because like out of the four, five podcasts I've had, three of them have been with you. So, but I'm sure new people will come on.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm bad at this. I feel like I should just
I'm
say
actually
something.
curious today. I had an idea that maybe I wanted to learn a bit more about you. First,
Nice, nice.
about your
Spark it
life, and second,
up.
about some of the practices you do, because I figured you've got something with Alan Watts and that sector of the
Yeah.
world. I don't know much
So
about it,
much of
so
that guy.
you can tell me a bit about your life and how it
Yeah,
intersects
yeah.
with that.
Awesome. The one caveat I will say is I'm fucking long-winded and like ADHD, and so I have a tendency to just like drift off into fucking just a story that doesn't matter about like a dog when I was 12 or
Okay.
something like that.
I'll try to pull you
But
back if I
yeah,
can.
yeah, I mean that sounds good. So yeah, pretty much I'm Australian, which is always a bit of a weird thing. I think it might not be the same for you because you're European, but most like Americans I meet, they have this assumption that in Australia we're basically just fucking knocking out kangaroos and fighting like crocodiles, and it's just like we're all like redneck, but also like Australian redneck, where people think we're like a crocodile hunter or Steve Irwin. And it's definitely not like that. I've recently moved to Brisbane, which is a more tropical city than what I'm used to, and there's heaps of wildlife, but realistically, like I've only fought two kangaroos in my life. No, I'm just kidding. I've never fought a kangaroo. But yeah, so I grew up here in Brisbane, and when I was like real young, we moved back to Kentucky. So I'm half American. This might be going a bit too far back in my worldview,
No, it's all
but
good.
lived for a few years in the States and then lived in Australia pretty much the rest of my life. I've been in Canberra more or less most of my life. Canberra's the capital. It's pretty boring down there. It's like kind of small city. It's like 400,000 people. But there's just not much going on. It's heaps of immigration and heaps of like growing up, my school was very multicultural. And so like everyone I knew was, Indonesian or Indian or African or Italian or whatever. So there was just like a huge mix. It was like a melting pot, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I have just like the classic story of like I was a shit student, still
Mm.
kind of a shit student. I think most of my life, one of the biggest issues I really had was I'm celiac, which is like some weird annoying disease where it's just like if I eat gluten, my body starts to conspire against itself and like my cells attack each other. But it's something I never knew I had until like a couple years back from now. And yeah, basically I've spent a lot of my life having a lot of like what I would say is just like concentration issues and focus issues. And I'm just a rebellious person in general, but growing up, it was pretty intense where it's just like the idea of sitting and learning algebra or whatever it might be. I couldn't think of anything worse. And so when I was, I don't know, I want to say I was like probably like 19, 20, I heard about meditation and stuff like that. And I always had a little bit of an allergy against just religion in general. Um, I just, for whatever reason, it's just, even today, like, it seems a little silly. Now I can really appreciate that there's definitely good practices and there's definitely like, Jesus was definitely a dude who he taught a lot of good things. I'm less inclined to be receptive to like I feel like in Catholicism and Christianity there's a lot of like fear-based stuff, and in the Bible it's a lot of like this is like you have to do this or else here's the counterfactual or the ultimatum where like it's gonna really suck dick, or sorry, I should probably not speak so badly, but it's it's gonna be really shit, you're gonna be in hell, whatever that is, just the worst possible like thing you can imagine. But yeah, I really got into like meditation as a practice because I just very strictly, oh, this will help me increase my ability to focus. Like that was like just the only reason I wanted to do it. I was like, I know that if I just keep doing this, eventually I'll be able to just like sit down and read a book without just wandering off. Um, and just with that one in specific, so like when I was pretty young, I I call it young now, but that's because I'm 30. But when I was like 18 to like 20, I really tried to get into like reading, and I just physically could not do it. Every single day I got home from work and I would try to read a book, and I would just get like two paragraphs and my mind would just wander and I just couldn't stick on it. And I think what I realized with that was I was just reading too slowly. So I got into like speed reading exercises, and I don't know if it like increases much, but it made it so that I could just read a bit quicker and then I could really read. But before then it was just like too slow that my brain just went on tangents and I couldn't focus. Um, but yeah, with like the Alan Watts stuff, I always like so when I was pretty young, I think I had health issues and shit. I had high cholesterol and I was like on shit that just made me lethargic as fuck. And I remember just like working heaps and just feeling super exhausted. And I'd listen to like motivational videos and just being young and kind of cringy and just like go to the gym, Arnold Schwarzenegger talking about, whatever, lift weights. And I would listen to that kind of stuff. And then I think like Alan Watts just sort of seeped in because he just got like added to a lot of like motivational
Yeah.
videos. Um, but he's definitely not what you would call like a motivator. He's a very like Eastern religion type of big beard, spends a lot of time just chilling out and thinking about Buddhism and stuff. Um, and I never really thought about it much. And then I think when I was like 22 or 23, my mate really pushed me into acid. Like, not pushed me in, but he was just like, let's take it. And I was like, I didn't really, I bought into the whole, those ideas, just like, you hear of story. I've never heard anyone actually have really horrible experience, but you hear stories where people, they take it once and they're just like completely retarded for the rest of their life or whatever, or they just like think they can fly and jump off a building or something like that. And so I was pretty not into it. And then I ended up taking it, and it was like probably the most extreme experience I had had up to that point, and it was pretty weird. And it was definitely like a negative. Like the whole thing was just like I felt like I was going crazy. But after it, and like in the peak of the craziness, I remember having just these weird flashbacks to a lot of the Alan Watts videos I'd listened to like 6 years prior, and all that shit just like went back in my brain, and I got all like I don't know, I felt like I just understood everything and everything made sense and all this weird stuff like that. But yeah, it was like a peak of just like extreme stress and didn't like it and like feel like, oh, I'm losing my mind. But then the come down of like when I got off the drug, like that session was just the most sublime bliss I had ever had. And it felt like my ADHD symptoms, whatever, were like gone. And that lasted for like, I don't know, like 2.5, 4 weeks. Like it was like quite a long period. And then I think from that point on, I just like slowly drifted more and more into like delving into sort of like meditation practices and the Far East sort of stuff. I'm a bit I'd say like kind of ambivalent towards like what it is. There's some stuff I like that's like classically, canonically like Hindu, but it doesn't fit the sort of Hindu religious structure. Some of it's like Buddhism, some of it's like Taoism, which is like it's kind of like this Chinese version, which I think was initially supposed to be like a sort of counter to their Confucianism ideas, which were very like just like prescriptive about here's how you live life and that sort of stuff. And then the Taoism stuff was supposed to be like, this is what someone told me, like a basic like example of like, look, here's the opposite of basically everything you've said, and you can see how it still works. And actually, that's just like a good way to sort of get into flow and be more like receptive with your own sort of feelings and how things are. I feel like I will just stop there for a second because I feel like I have just talked like 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Um, and I just feel narcissistic almost because I'm just like me, 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 me. So I will stop here and then you can ask questions. And if you don't have any, I'll just keep talking, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's great. Thank you. I really did you read the Tao Te Ching?
Yeah. Think about right here. I love it.
Nice.
It's
I
like my
have the
favorite
exact
book.
same copy with the
Oh
illustration.
yeah, it's
Yes.
nice. I've read like a lot of them, like the different
Yeah.
translations and stuff. I like that one. But yeah, I've read a few. I think my ADHD stuff, I like some of them, like YouTube video ones have like music at the background. I like
Yeah.
some of that, but I think the translation, this one's pretty good. For me though, it's kind of, this might just be something about my brain and I'm like retarded or dumb or something, but a lot of it it follows sort of this similar curve that getting into it did, where it's like I read this stuff and I was like, oh, it's kind of cool, but I don't really get it. And then like one day I'll take acid or something, and then it's just like I'm like, oh, I think I start to sort of
Yeah.
conceptualize or understand all that knowledge. And I feel like I don't know, I think it might just be something wrong with me or something that might be a way that I learn a little bit better, or at least with certain things like that, which are a little bit less sort of mechanical than most nature, because it's like a lot of the Buddhist stuff and a lot of like that sort of stuff is almost, it's almost like I heard somebody talk about like quantum physics, and it's kind of like when you like this is probably a bad example, but they were saying like imagine you had like you lost some coins in your um couch, and like as you try to get it you push it in further, and they were
Hmm.
saying like quantum mechanics is kind of like that, like the very nature of like measuring it kind of changes its reality. And sometimes I feel like with the Buddhism stuff it's kind of like that, where it's like if you really go into depths with like what Buddha taught and all that sort of stuff, he was very prescriptive, and like he had like a lot of teachings. And when you think of the Bible's, you know, like this on like a varied amount of topics. And then like his suttas or whatever, which are like that big, like it's just so much that he
Really?
talked about, but it's on a very short, yeah, but it's on a much shorter topic. Like he's not talking about all of reality and stuff. Like most of it is about just this one specific thing, which
Okay.
in his mind is, he taught dukkha and the end of dukkha, which dukkha is a word that they translate as like suffering,
Hmm.
or sometimes they say suffering is probably not the best translation. It's more like unsatisfactoriness, I think is probably like a closer one, or like it kind of sucks, or like because some things aren't suffering. Like you wouldn't say like I'm a little bit hungry and I'm suffering or
Yeah.
whatever. Uh, but it is kind of in that way where it's like you do something and then you stop suffering, quote unquote, but it doesn't last. Like it's not a continuous field of thing. Like you eat food, you get full, and you're so full you don't want to eat, but then eventually it sort of dissipates and then it comes back again. And so I think that's more the way that he was talking about it. Um, where was I going with that? But yeah, I think with the yeah, that sort of stuff, a lot of those sorts of like I, I I feel like I have never really had like sort of like spiritual experiences, or at least when I was younger, until I started maybe more experimenting with some of the naughty drugs and stuff like that. And never anything like too intense, but like just like mushrooms and acid, and
Yeah.
I guess MDMA. Some people get like sort of religious love experiences and that sort
Hmm.
of stuff. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I was going somewhere with that, but then I just fucking I went
Oh,
on a
that's all good. It
tangent
makes
and
sense. It's cool. Can I zoom in a little bit on your childhood? Because I'm curious a
mm,
bit more
go for
about
it.
how you experienced that. Were you a happy child in general? Did you have siblings? How is your relationship
Yeah, I
with
got one brother. Sorry,
a brother? Yeah.
please
And your
go.
parents, for example? Yeah.
Mm, yeah, definitely. I have one brother, older brother. He's 3 years and one day. We, you know, we get along. I think you, it seems like you have like a pretty, I won't say crazy, but just having that many siblings, it seems like it's a lot. You have like four siblings or five
Five.
siblings or something.
Five, yeah.
But yeah, that seems like a lot, but just because I came from just a singular one. But yeah, me and my brother, we kind of got along, you know, at a certain age when you're growing up, your little brother becomes a fucking annoying nuisance. So we definitely had a lot of moments of like just like punching on and like violence and stuff to each other. But I think it's like a normal level of like, you
Yeah.
know, like destroy him at PlayStation and he gets angry and just like wants to fight and stuff like that. Um, I think, yeah, my family is, you know, like where I grew up in Canberra, it's actually a pretty chill place and it's pretty calm. But I think for whatever reason, I just all my friends were some level of degenerate, and like just everyone was into crime and just being bad. And so like when I reflect about my upbringing compared to most other people, I do think I had like a pretty good upbringing. My family, my mom's and dad, they're not very drug addicted. They're not, abusive, nothing like that. But I think I was a really stressed out kid, just like I was just like pissed off all the time. I used to think it was very much just like I wasn't challenged as a kid and just I found everything so boring and I just like needed more stimulation. And there's probably a bit of that, but I do think now that I look back, I'm like, part of me thinks like it might have just been this, a lot of it is just this dietary thing because like I don't like now if I do eat gluten or whatever, I just get so angry, but like also like sometimes they call it mind brain fog, where
Hmm.
you just can't remember it. You just don't you just kind of you get like it almost feels like a low level dementia. Like you just kind of like don't know what the fuck is going
Yeah.
on in your brain. You seem so much more reactive than you usually would or whatever. Um yeah, I think the spiritual stuff is definitely something that I was when I was about 17, my best mate died in a car crash. And that was just like such an intense experience that I feel like growing up, most people I knew didn't know anyone who had died until, we got a bit older and things like car crashes become a bit more common. I think, especially like your age and my age, like it's like the number one cause of death. It's just like a car accident because, people are fucking bad drivers, myself included. Sometimes I feel like I'm pretty good, but like, you know, sometimes
Mm.
you don't pay attention. Um, And I think that was like definitely like a weird experience because it just like changed my life or whatever. Like I was just super not expecting it, super close with this dude. He was living at my house, not at the time, but for like months before. And like my mom saw him as like a son, basically. And so like it was just like a very weird sort of thing to happen because like I don't know if you've known many people in your life who have like passed away or anything like that, but it just like complete changes your world because it's just
Yeah.
like something that you always see and then just and the weird thing about him, he was very would like hang out with fucking us and be degenerate and we all like skated and just doing nothing too bad, just like smoking ciggies and drinking and just like
Mm.
whatever, chasing girls and being stupid. But he was like low key fucking like real Christian and like sneaking off to church, which is a really weird thing in my opinion because it's not the typical sort of thing. What about you? How was your upbringing? Do you feel like you had like a pretty good one, or do you say you're the
Paper.
second five? Is that what you
Sorry.
said last time? The second last child of five?
I'm
Is that
the
what I heard?
I'm the fourth, so yeah, I'm the
Mm,
third last. Right? Right,
damn.
no? Yeah. No, my childhood on paper it was very good, I think. I was very blessed with yeah, I think so, right? Third last.
Sorry, I confused myself for a second. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm the fourth. That's how
Um,
I remember it. Um, but I
are
wasn't
you
a very happy
you're
kid. Pretty stressed out as well.
European? Yeah. Any reason do you think looking back, or just hormones, too much testosterone? You know,
I don't know. I think I
no.
was quite
You think it
afraid of
froze?
things, insecure. I was well, I was the
Yeah.
fourth, so I had a lot of support from my siblings, but also I felt a lot of pressure from them. Like if I did something wrong, you have like three older kids who are, ganging up on you.
Kick
That's
your
my
ass.
father's
Yeah.
explanation for me being afraid. Um,
Yeah.
so on
I
paper
kind
it
of
was very good, but I didn't like I had a lot of negative emotion as a child. And now I'm
yeah.
the opposite, let's say, because I have more and more autonomy. For me, autonomy was always very important, even when I was a child, but I don't didn't have it, I didn't have any of it. So
Impatience just killed me. Like waiting for stuff as a kid,
yeah,
I just couldn't. Like I just scream. I was like, I have to wait how long? Like, oh, I hated it.
yeah,
I think even now at like 3 o'clock, like I don't know if it's a thing because of like the pattern of school, but at about 3 o'clock every day, I just get so restless and I need to either go for a walk or work out or some shit. And I think it might
yeah.
just been in school because that was like finally the moment at the end of the day where you could get the fuck out of there or whatever.
Did you have a lot of
Um,
hours a day in
yeah.
school?
Here it's like well, I think it's like 9 to 3 or something like that.
Yeah, we have a
But
similar.
it feels like forever when you just hate it. I feel like a lot of it could have been like if teachers kind of explained why I should care about it, I feel like maybe I would have cared about it more. But it just felt so arbitrary. Like we're just doing weird tests on random things that like I'm never going to use algebra or whatever
Mm.
the hell it is. And I just use that as an example because I remember that was the point in maths where I like that's why I tapped out. Like everything before then was pretty easy and I could understand it. And then they started adding pyramids and E equals this, and I'm like, I don't know, dude. I don't care any of this.
Yeah,
So it's interesting. You said that with your dad, he that was his explanation about like why you were
yeah,
temperamental or whatever. I think I don't know if this is true, and I don't want to like discredit all of therapy, but I did get into like some therapy, but I don't know, I was like 25 or something like that. And I think some of it's good. I think for me, some of it's good just to like talk.
yeah.
But one thing I felt is that there's a lot of like there's so many lenses you can have to look at anything. Like there's so many different ways to perceive something that like, your dad could say, oh, the reason you did X is because of Y. But then like it could really just be like a completely different reason. It could
Of
be you
course.
just didn't get enough sleep last night, you had too much glucose, or like just so many small things. But then I feel like, especially with therapy, people often like attach themselves to certain explanations
Mm.
and then it's like pathologizes the way they are in a weird way where it's like they're like, oh yes, the reason I'm scared of heights is because when I was young, my parents threw me up or whatever, and like that's the reason, and blah blah, and they try to like integrate that knowledge and all that sort of stuff. But often I feel like it's just there's so many different reasons it could
Yeah,
be, and then often like we just throw things at the wall. And we're like, yeah, that seems correct, and so because it seems correct, we like latch onto that. And
that's a
so
good
sometimes I
point.
feel like it's like negative sometimes, like we're like people are often, and I think that's a thing with like the Buddhism stuff as well, where it's like people are often looking for a reason. They're like looking for something to feel good, or they're like, like trying to figure out why they are the way they are, or why they aren't the way they want to be. When
Yeah,
like realistically, at any moment, you can sort of just like drop that and just like stop clinging to like caring about something really particular. And like in that moment of just like, I'm gonna just like let go, you can just redecide anything, like do whatever the fuck you want. You know what I
yeah, that's
mean? Something
beautiful.
like that. Like I feel me like I remember, I don't know if you ever know like Tony Robbins and stuff like that. He's like a
Yeah.
motivational
Hmm.
dude. But he would say somewhere is this like decision comes from the Latin word incision, and it means that like the moment you decide something, you cut off or whatever.
Yeah.
And like so like it just felt like the way he was explaining it was just like the moment you decide something, that's it. And I remember like growing up and just like being addicted to cigarettes or alcohol, whatever it would be. There would always be that like I'd feel like I'd need that like springboard to get there. But then like when I got more into Buddhist stuff, I realized it's like you can really just like kind of do whatever the hell you want. And you can really just force yourself to do whatever you want. And that
Mm.
might not be the best word, force it, but sometimes you can just be like, I'm just gonna do X, and I don't have to
Yeah.
be like, oh, I'm in the whatever good mood or whatever. I don't know. I just
You
went on a
can
tangent.
rewrite your story quite easily, much more easily than
Yeah,
you might think. I agree with that.
yeah. I think there's something to I do a lot of writing, and a lot of it's like journaling and stuff like that, but
Mhm.
often it's like fiction writing. But I broke so many hard drives I had that had heaps of my writing, and I don't really care about most of it, but there was one where I just like went through my childhood one day just like wrote it out, and just like from that different lens of like I was looking at it later, it felt like a lot of things clicked. So like for me, I feel like there is something there where it's like if you want to fucking go through your childhood and shit, there's definitely like stuff you can learn. But I feel like so many people cling to just everything, not even just their childhood, but they just cling to things when they just don't need to. You can just kind of go fuck it, and I'm just gonna chill. Life's
Yeah.
awesome. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Uh,
I definitely feel this way for my own life. Like when I tell you about my childhood, it's also something that doesn't really haunt me anymore. Like I'm not anymore that fearful child. So in that sense, I think I have made those decisions or changed my ways in that sense. But if I hadn't, I think this is good advice for people that are listening that maybe stuck in something from the past that you can look at it in a totally different way or realize that the story you're telling yourself about it might not be capturing the whole picture and that you have much more agency in it. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, there's this girl on Twitter I follow who she's really weird. Like she's definitely like a weird person, which I mean, weird in my opinion, weirdness isn't bad, and I think there's like a bit of correlation between weirdness and intelligence that a lot of people don't like to like admit. But she's like a very odd person. Like she's like does weird surveys and into like sex work and it's like very artistic and just like has like all these weird personality things. But she was saying a similar thing, and I thought it kind of like illustrated the point good, where she was saying that she grew up in like I think it was like a very toxic, abusive relationship with her parents who were like extremely, I don't know, some version, I want to say Mormon, but I don't think it was, but just like some version of like ultra Orthodox Christian and like abusive. And she was saying that she remembers growing up and like just like that was it. Like she didn't attach too much negativity to it because that was just her experience and that she didn't think about it. But then as she got older and she told people about her childhood, they would be like, holy shit, you went through all this trauma and abuse and like, wow, are you okay? And then like at that fact, like at that point in time,
Yeah,
she was like, oh, holy shit, I should feel bad. And then she started feeling like really horrible about her upbringing and stuff. But before that, it was just like never an issue. And
that's quite interesting. Yeah.
there's definitely yeah, there's definitely people and points where it's like people cope and they build these weird things where like, they're addicted to eating because it's like an abuse thing. And obviously you should probably try to get rid of that. But I do think that sometimes people they yeah, they reach for explanations
Yeah.
when maybe they don't. You can kind of just go, I'm gonna just be better or do whatever I want or whatever. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, and it's also something you have to balance. I mean, of course, there are people that do have to face things from their past, I guess. Would you agree?
For sure. For sure.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. For sure. And I'm not trying to like say like all the therapy is bad or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
just that in my personal experience, for me individually, and as I said, I had a pretty good upbringing, so it might just be that I'm just like the lucky case or whatever.
Yeah.
But it felt like for me, a lot of the things, it was more about like if there was something I needed to get over, it was more about letting go of it rather than diagnosing. Well, you got like a ghost in your house, dude.
Go on.
Poltergeist. But yeah, I just felt like for me personally, it was a lot about like actually letting go of trying to understand and explain it, and like
Yeah.
maybe some like forgiving yourself or forgiving other people, whatever. But a lot of it's more about letting go rather than being like, I'm going to diagnose X, Y, and Z, and this is why I like peanut butter or whatever the heck it might be. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you? Do
Um,
you have like electricity? Are you like your house is like going? There was like
oh
going
yeah,
like
sorry, this is just
your
my
lights were
lamp.
going
It's
on.
really my lamp is like very unstable,
Uh,
so if I wait, let me see. Well, I have to touch it a certain way to make it consistently shine, let's say.
damn.
But it's all good. Okay, I have a question for you. Do you love yourself and have you loved yourself in the past?
Yeah, I'm probably more on the spectrum of too much love for myself. Like I think I'm like Donald Trump level of narcissism. I'm like I'm pretty great. I'm
Are you
amazing.
serious?
A a little bit, yeah. I think I'm awesome. My girlfriend is laughing at me in the corner. I definitely like, like everyone, I have issues of like anxiety and like especially growing up and like, being scared with girls and stuff like that. But I definitely, yeah, I got a lot of love for myself. I don't know if that's it's weird because I almost want to say like, oh, it seems bad, like that's a bad thing, but I don't actually think it is. I just think that like the usual expectation that people have for themselves and others is they have this like shame and stuff like that. And I just, yeah, I don't really think I have much of that. I do think I'm a pretty good person though as well. Like I
Yeah.
think like especially morally, I feel like I've really done a lot to try and like you like where I can do the right thing even when something easier would suffice or like that option was easier, but I knew it was like it's just not as good. It would like fuck someone over slightly and stuff like that. I feel like I have just in that way, like morally, have been like a pretty good person. But then just also I'm like I don't know. I do think it's probably sounds crazy to other people, but I do think it's not a bad thing that some people view themselves so highly. A lot of people are like, oh, you think you're better than other people. And then my view is more like it is going to sound horrible, but like, yeah, of course I think I'm better than other people. Not that they're worse than me, but I'm the only person who can really rationalize the things I've done or is interested in the things I'm interested in, that sort of stuff. So like I can justify why I've done something and things like that. So of course I'm gonna like in my mind be like, oh yeah, like the reason I did this was for some very justified reason. Whereas I think other people they see that idea and they're like, oh, you think you're better than other people. When I say the Donald Trump thing though, that's more of like a joke. I'm
Okay.
not Donald Trump. Like I think he has like probably crippling levels of like insecurity and like anxiety and like is probably just a bad person and like you know what I mean? I think he
I know
probably
what you
like
mean.
just that hair and the fucking the orangeness, like there's no way he's not extremely anxious about like who he is or
Yeah.
whatever.
So,
How about you? Do you feel
well, I have one
do
more
you love
question
yourself?
before we go to me. Do you
Go
think
for it. Yeah.
it's self-love? Do you think it's do you have pride for yourself? How would you describe it?
Um, it might be a weird choice of phrase, but I definitely have been reading some Buddhist stuff, but it's probably compassion. I don't
Ah,
know. I feel like I think I think there's a part of me that might be a little bit stuck in when I was like your age, when I was like 22 and stuff like that, and I was like
mhm.
partying and stuff. And like being that age, I remember just being very like I know you're just caught up about like how you look and trying to get girls and party and who's the tankest and who's got most money and that sort of stuff. And there's probably a part of me that is there because I just think that's like a very deep nested thing that's really hard to like untangle from your own psyche or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think like just even the fact that I recognize that part in me, I'm probably better at noticing that than a lot of people at my age or whatever. But I think a lot of it comes down to just like a weird level of compassion where I just feel like I don't know. I kind of like really love just fucking everything really. Like I think I briefly went touched on it at one point, but I had this weird experience at like a party, hippie party in the bush, and it's like they have these things here they're called duffs. It's like a weird word, but it's a really weird setting because you're surrounded by like trees and you're like really fuck off far away from like like anything civilization wise and the party's like 6 days long. And the music typically sucks, in my opinion. It's all like drum and bass and side trance and stuff like that. But it's a cool environment where you can like party for a really long time. And I went to one and I had just like I was dying kind of. I feel like I was off my cholesterol meds that had been on forever because I have like crazy high levels just for some genetic reason, nothing dietary wise and I was waiting to get on a new drug. And I just started like really having celiac symptoms, but I didn't know I was celiac. So I had food poisoning and I was just felt sick for like a year. And for like 6 months prior, I kept feeling just like I was gonna have a heart attack. It's kind of weird, but it felt like there was like a knot in my heart. And just like all the time, I just felt like I was gonna die. But I refused to get on cholesterol meds because they just made me feel so shit. And so I just always felt like I was gonna die. Anyway, at the end of this festival, I just was like partying and taking drugs, and there's like vape DMT and mushrooms and drinking heaps and eating pizza, which is probably the most deadly of that whole concoction for me at that time because celiac, like it just ruined me. And yeah, I ended up having a heart attack. I'm pretty sure it was a heart attack. I don't know for sure. My cardiologist was like, yeah, you probably did, but people were like, you would have known if you had a heart attack. And I'm like, it felt like one. And I had this weird like meditative experience where it just felt like I like for like 40 minutes I just like sat really up straight because I was trying to stop myself from dying because it felt like I was dying and I was like sharpness in my chest and my arm went numb and like everything started going black. And I it was just like freaking out and like it's pretty hard to like stop yourself from dying. So I just like sat there with like the most concentration I ever had. And then eventually when I left, I was like, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die on the fucking beach or whatever. And when I was driving there, I just had like this crazy experience where it felt like me did die, but like not me, like the ID or like the if we're gonna go to Carl Jung level, he calls it ID or whatever. But it felt like that, like, because I think he has like this ego and super ego, and then there's like ID. I don't know, we don't have to get into that, but
Hmm.
it felt like that sense of myself literally died, and like what was left was just this weird like perfection of emptiness. Like it just felt like instead of sports being what I thought I was prior to that, they just arose like hiccups, like just something that you wouldn't ever
Yeah.
laughably perceive is you. And then there's just like things popped up. And for 4 weeks after that period, I just had like full, like, it's gonna sound weird, but just like every time I met someone, I just like fully fell in love with them, but not in like a romantic fashion. I just like, it would be inconceivable in my mind to even think something negative about them because I was just like so amazed by every experience I ever had and everything. And like I felt like I was not attached to my thoughts, and like even the idea of like categorizing things into different categories and
Hmm.
stuff like that, like it just, that didn't make sense. Like it just seems like I experienced a tree, and before I'd be like, oh, that tree looks weird, or that chick looks fat, or whatever. And now it's just like I just saw everything. And then there was like whatever, there's thoughts, but they're just, it's literally like when you hiccup, like it's just like a random
Yeah.
involuntary expression, but has nothing to do with actually who you are. Anyway, that was the longest fucking preamble. I feel like part of it's like that for me, where like there's something in me where I do sort of feel like I can just fall in love with everyone, including myself, though. I think like at that point, before then, it was really hard for me to have that maybe self-compassion, that self-love. But I think now it's much easier for me to just like view everyone in that way. But yeah, I do think I hold myself in obviously too high a regard because I can just fucking talk like that. I think as well within Buddhism, there's this, I don't know if you've ever done MDMA and stuff, but there's this practice in Buddhism called metta meditation, which is called, it's metta, but that's like a fucking one of the Sanskrit terms or whatever. But it translates to loving kindness meditation, and you basically just sit and you try to like generate this feeling of love for just say your fiance or somebody you love, and then you start moving that on, like you really just pinpoint focus on love, but then you move it to other people, and so you can go to someone you would hate or Hitler or whatever, or just you move that love to everyone, but eventually you do it for every person. But you can also do it for yourself, which a lot of people have a hard time doing. So they generate this feeling of love for someone else, and then when they try to put it back on themselves, they can sometimes have like a block. But I never had that.
Mm.
I was always like, yeah, I'm awesome, dude. I'm the shit. Why not? I don't think I answered your question, but sometimes I feel like I should stop talking.
No, that was good. I think I got a good idea. I actually did that meditation recently.
Yeah, nice. I think I might have
So
mentioned it last time. I'm not sure.
I
I
don't
think I'm
know.
probably repeating.
No, but
Yeah,
my
I found that one very strong because for me, and sorry to interrupt, but for me,
all
it
good.
was like after that weird experience I had, it was very easy. Like I've taken heaps of drugs and all that and DMT and stuff like that, but nothing was as profoundly like strong as like just when I would meditate after that. Like everything
Mm.
just felt amazing. But after, like, I think I mentioned last time where like the first time I drank alcohol, it just completely disappeared, and I was like fucking depressed about it for ages. But it completely went away, and then I just became my normal self and constantly lost in my own thoughts and agitations and stresses and emotions and stuff. But the meta meditation was one where it just felt like it was so easy to re-enter it. Like it just felt like I was like taking MDMA, like after like 3 minutes of just sitting there like doing that, which I felt was really weird because in my experience, that's not common for other meditations, but most people can get into that almost like MDMA loving compassion for everyone pretty
Mm.
easily if they just try it, from my experience. But again, some people can have like weird blockers and they hate themselves or hate just weird shit like that. You never know.
Yeah.
I should tell you. Yeah, I think I just said I'm like I should shut up. I think for me, I do, yeah, I think I have a lot of love for myself, but there is a part of me that knows that I have a weird block with like my brain and my mouth. And I remember when I was young, my brother said to me, he's like, do you ever just think about what you're going to say before you say it? And I was like 14, like it should have occurred to me that I should do that. And it was like a light bulb moment. Like I had never thought to think about stuff I'll say before I say it. Like the way I previously, before then, was thinking was I just open my mouth, and that's how I figure out what I want to
Yeah.
think. Sounds really retarded. It is retarded. I'm probably like survived Down syndrome
I
or
don't think it's
something,
that
to be
crazy
honest.
because I think a lot of people they don't think about it. Like just little things, if you've never been told or made aware of some things, like very simple things, Then as a kid, maybe you never find out. So I don't think it's that crazy. But now you do think.
Could be
You think before you speak
sometimes,
sometimes
maybe sometimes,
at a funeral.
very rarely, but more than I usually do. At a funeral,
Yeah,
definitely not, dude. I'm the worst. Nah, I'm pretty good at funerals.
good.
I've only been to like two, and they're like people do, so it's
Hmm.
it's very I'm not gonna be like making an inappropriate joke when it's like my mate or my grandma or whatever.
That's
I
good.
might. I think that's the perfect place, a funeral, to make a joke because everyone's so serious and you
Yeah.
want to just try to lighten it up and shit. But yeah, I don't know. I get myself into trouble. I'm an idiot. I once asked I think I don't know if I said this last time, but I once asked the like security guard at my work, if you have to if they catch many terrorists, and they said, "The fuck did you just say?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just kidding. Like you having to stop many terrorists." And then I got fired. It was probably not. It made the joke
Really?
funnier because it wasn't fun. I was finishing the next week, but they actually fired me like a week. Like my contract was finished, but like that week they were like within the hour. Like it was pretty crazy. And
Wow.
what the thing, one of the security guards laughed. The other guy did not. He was very serious. He was like, "What?"
Uh,
Like he was, what did you say? And I was just trying to, they have a boring job. I was trying to like make them smile and make them a bit happier, but it was not. Yeah,
that's
that
rough.
was like, I should probably fucking not joke around at work. Whatever.
I don't
Get a
think that's
job
that
anyway.
bad though. I think maybe you took it a bit.
Yeah, I think they might have had some crazy shit happen or something.
Yeah,
Like it
maybe.
must.
Yeah.
Well, I was at one job and there was, I don't know if I should say it. I'm gonna say it. There was one day there was a chick who came to work, like not at my work, but like down in the cafe. So we had like these big government buildings, and then like the whole building's ours. But then like down the bottom there'll be like a cafe or something. And a girl came on her day off, um, and she lit herself with petrol and fucking lit it. Yeah, it's crazy. She was being like performance manager or something. And like, yeah, apparently she just like, shh. I remember seeing heaps of cops. And I was like, what's going on? And apparently like a security guard tackled her, and it was like, yeah, really intense. Like she was having like an unfortunate moment. And so,
Did she
which isn't
survive?
indicative of the job. I'm pretty sure. I think so. I think there was like security guards that like tackled and stuff, but it was a very like we didn't even see it happen. There was just like heaps of ambulance and stuff, and you know. Anyway, it's just got nothing to do with anything, but it's a story
Wow.
that comes to my mind.
Did you ever see that
Yeah,
monk do that? Like a
I
Tibetan.
did. That's a
Yeah.
very insane.
You watch that video?
That's a very insane picture from. So what video? I've never seen a video. I've seen pictures of it.
There's a video,
The
full,
monk.
full colored, yeah.
Damn,
He
Dagger.
doesn't respond at all. He lights himself on fire, and it's wild.
Yeah, they call it self-immolation or whatever. And that's one of those things where it's like that's one that people look at with Buddhism where they're like, see, you can do crazy shit with your mind that is like not conceptually normal to most people or whatever. I definitely don't think I even want to get to that level, let alone would, but it is a crazy thing. And I forget that we're actually on a podcast with potentially people listening. So I'll explain it. There was like I think it was actually a Vietnamese monk, but I might be wrong. And he to protest like war or like unfair government treatment or something like that, he just like sat there in the perfect like Buddhist seat, but he put petrol all over his body and lit himself on fire and just sort of just chilled. Didn't really
He
seem to
didn't
affect his.
move. It was wild.
Yeah, I wonder with those sorts of things because like recently I saw there's this lady who has like no pain receptors. Like they found just like a weird genetic quirk. She just doesn't feel pain for whatever reason. So she could just like break her arm and she just wouldn't notice it. Which has crazy future science like possibilities with it.
Okay.
Um, but I wonder if like maybe that guy specifically, the monk that burned himself, had something like that going on, as well as the meditation. I do know that like meditation, you can get like crazy levels of like disassociation with yourself and all that sort of stuff. But for me personally, I don't know if I would ever get to a point where I wouldn't be like, like and crying like a little bitch about it constantly because that's yeah, not great. Not a great thing. I think that's one of the things as well where it's like that is kind of one of the differences. From what I see that it makes Buddhism a little bit different than some of the other religions in that, you know, Jesus never preached violence. He was a good guy. He's like, yo, love thy neighbor and all that sort of stuff. But like Buddhism's like it's like pretty non-violent religion. There's other religions that are less violent. The Jainism is one that's like it's basically just Buddhism, but like takes those things to even more extremes where it's like when you walk you have to sweep so you don't kill ants and stuff like that. But
Mm.
yeah, Buddhism is a very non-violent religion. There are people who are Buddhists who do violence. Obviously, like Japan during World War II was a pretty Buddhist country, but if you read the thing, it's like don't kill people is like one of the first precepts of
Mm.
like the don't kill anyone. And that's
Mm.
when, stuff gets weird too with that because it's like they say don't kill anyone and then like, but they don't kill anyone like in Christianity and Catholicism they view animals as more as like they're here for us and they don't count sort of thing. Whereas in like Buddhism, it's like don't kill ants, don't kill anything. But that was before they knew about, bacteria and like is antibiotics, does that count as killing someone? Because you're definitely killing bacteria cells and stuff like that. Anyway, I get like too artistically narrowed on that stuff sometimes. I don't know if you've ever been into the Judaism stuff, but one thing that I found interesting with that is they're very specific with that shit. You know what I mean? They're like,
Yeah, very law based. True.
yeah, but then they're like sneaky with it. You know what I mean? They were like I lived with these people, and they were like a Jewish couple in an Airbnb for a bit, and they were doing the Sabbath on Friday to Saturday, and one of the girls is just like yeah, it'd be good if there's light in here. You know what I mean? And then she just asked me, she's like, "Can you turn the light on?" Because like she's not allowed to switch the light on because that counts as lighting fire or something, and like lighting fire because there's like with electronics, apparently there's like a electrical charge and that's like a little flame or something like that. And that would break the Sabbath. So instead of doing it, they're just like, can you do it for me? Which,
Mm.
is kind of breaking the rules if you're like, like I didn't shoot the guy, the gun shoot the guy or whatever. Anyway, I'm stupid.
That's so interesting. They're not allowed to turn
Yeah,
a
so
light
from
on.
Friday to Saturday, it's like a very specific where it's like they have no work. You're not allowed to work on that time. It's supposed to be like a day of, I don't know if it's recovery as much, but it's like you're allowed to read, but you
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
read stuff. You can read the Bible and stuff like that, but you're supposed to
yeah.
be with friends, have a drink, chill out. And I found it a very good experience. I was a little bit too locked in with like work at the time and
Hmm.
like I was partying a bit and I just felt like my dopamine was like going crazy and it felt good to have what which probably would have just been like a dopamine detox to just be like, all right, I'm gonna force myself not to like go, 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 go just for one day. And it felt really good. And sometimes I try to do it, but sometimes I don't know how productive it is long term or whatever.
I think it's like a sustainable way of doing things. Like if you're a hard worker, like if you work
Hmm.
the whole week, it's good to have a day off. Like I understand Sundays, that make a lot of sense to me. Just taking
Well,
time off.
that's your Christian because they're Friday to Saturday, but the
We
Christians
have
they're like
Sunday,
Sunday.
yeah. True,
Yeah,
true.
it's
But
different.
yeah, we
Do you
would
do
like
that
grow.
on Sunday you chill out?
Sorry.
Do you do that on Sunday? Are you like more relaxed or whatever?
Um, Not really. I try to a little bit, but as a kid, it was much more like that. But like we weren't allowed to have electronics during the day. You'd go to church.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Electronics during the day.
Well, that
Yeah,
changed.
I now
It
I see why you're so grumpy, dude. I'll be grumpy too.
it
Can't play
changed over time.
Mario. Yeah. I
So
remember when my parents tried to do like you can play video games for 1 hour a day, and that didn't fly with me. I was not happy with that.
no, but my parents, it was just like at some point they had their own phones, and then it would be contradictory. Like they can't make the rules for us and then not apply it to themselves. So
Oh, they can. People do that all the time. I always have fights with my girlfriend. She has rules for her, but she's like, yeah, but it's different for you. I'm like, I don't know about it.
I think
I same time.
as a parent, you can't do that. Like
Yeah.
the child will understand. It's just not the way. But if you're with
So
your
are
partner,
you like French with it, where it's like, okay, because parents can drink alcohol, so kids should be able to drink alcohol, because otherwise it'd be different rules.
I actually
In France,
us
they drink
growing
whatever.
up, huh?
You're European. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. You
French people.
just you start drinking very early, like just a little bit. Like you get a sip of wine when you're 12 or whatever.
Jeez.
I don't
That
mind that.
seems
I think it's a good way to do it. Because, in the US, for example, what is
yeah,
it, like
very.
21? You
It's
have
like
to wait
I
until
think it's
21?
I think it might be every state, but I'm not sure.
And with us, it used to be 16.
Damn, you guys are fucking wild.
But it also makes us like, in general, I think, better able to
Yeah, 20
handle alcohol.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, here it's 18.
If I was like in the US and I started drinking at 21, I think my life would have been much worse than the way I did it now. Because I started at 15 and I stopped at 18 because I was just like, what's the point?
Mhm.
Whereas if I would have had to wait until 21 in college, then I would have gone like,
Nobody does wait in the
no,
States
I
from
know,
what I know, but I get yeah. I mean,
you know
some
what I
people,
mean?
yeah, yeah. That's one thing I saw because like I remember growing up, like me and all my friends, we were like drinking and smoking weed and stuff pretty young, and then it seemed like by the time we got to 18 and 19, we were a little bit less like whatever
Yeah,
by that point, like we didn't care about it as much. Whereas
yeah,
like the people who were a bit more like compliant with the rules and a bit more like nerdy and stuff like that, they then they went. It seemed like they went like over the top hard
yeah.
on
That's
it.
exactly what happens.
They went from like I want to be a mathematician to like fucking fucked up 24/7. You're like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah, it's exactly
Because I
that.
feel like I feel like I already had that, and I was like, all right, I know what's going on. I don't need I don't need to get too fucked up or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, weird. I
yeah,
forgot about
basically.
that. Yeah, that made me. I just thought of that because I saw somebody the other day who, I mean, he's such like a good kid at school, and now he's fucked. Like he's
Yeah,
like deep end
I know
fucked.
some of
So he's
those.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I got super angry the other day. I fucking saw one of my oldest friends and he like just I don't know, seems deep end with that stuff. Like just went down on hard drugs and stuff like that. And I don't know. I have just very little I don't know if this is the right word, but I have little sympathy for that sort of stuff. I
Mm.
just it's not I don't have sympathy. It's just that I feel like I remember when I was a kid, my mom's brother, so my uncle, I remember he was like borrowing money from us on our birthday because he was like a heroin addict. Like he was like next level. And we were like kids, we were like 8. And I remember he just was just like a different person for the rest of his life after that. Like just he went fucking weird.
Mm.
Yeah, there you go. Interesting. Yeah, speaking of like childhood and stuff like that though, my mom had like a fucking crazy upbringing. Like some of the stories she tells me is just I feel so bad for her because when I honestly think about it, it's like worse than like most people I've ever heard, except like the tail end, like people who are like kept in cages and stuff like that. Like she just had like really insane parents and like I remember when she was young, her brother he shot himself in the head and she had to clean it because I think back in those days they didn't have people who would like come and like clean up your like if somebody died like it might even still be the case but you just like that was just something you had to deal with. They took the body but then the rest gets dumped to somebody. And I remember she was just like a kid, she was like 15 or something during the time. And like the worst bit about it is my grandma, her mom, used to just like victim blame her for that shit. Like she's like, it's your fault that he killed himself and stuff like that all the time. And
Whoa.
so my mom went like mad. Like she's like social worker, always wants to help people, and it's just like a very good person, always trying to help people and works with. At the moment, she works with people who are like victims of sexual abuse and children. Just I wouldn't want to do it because it's very depressing work, but it's good that people do that, and it's like very Jesus, Mother Teresa sort of work. But I remember growing up, I think because of it, she was so paranoid about just everything, like, but mainly like drugs and stuff like that. Like before I even knew what weed was, I had been kicked out of my house because she thought I was like smoking weed, and I didn't even like know what it was. So she was like that level of paranoid because she had been doing that work, and then she had also seen some of her family members go like crazy levels and stuff like that. So yeah, she's
Mhm.
like super paranoid. Yeah, I don't know why I brought that up. Oh, there you go.
That's really rough. Is your grandmother still alive?
Not that. No, neither of them. But that one, she died a long time ago. And she's
Okay.
such a sweet lady to me. But she like we're from like Kentucky. She's pretty hardcore. She's like and that might be why I always have been a little bit against religion stuff because she was like
Yeah,
hardcore
I wouldn't be
Christian.
surprised about that. Makes a lot of
She
sense.
viewed
Yeah.
yeah, she viewed like even women as kind of like not like she was like straight up like she said the N word and stuff and just sweet old white lady and she was saying the
Wow.
N word and like, went to school with black kids. I had no idea what she was talking. I was like, what the fuck? But she was sweet to me. But yeah, just like really fucked on. But pretty much hated everyone that wasn't a white male Christian. Like if you were like Mexican, get the fuck out. If you were a woman, she's like, what the fuck? Women are shit. But like white men, she's like, you get a pass if you believe in Jesus. So yeah, she was pretty intense lady. Not to me though. To me, she was sweet.
Mm,
Always got me gifts and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. But I think at a certain point with that sort of stuff as well, it's like when you're super old, she's like 90 or 80 or whatever when she died. It's like, am I really gonna like how much effort am I gonna spend to try and like make you less, ignorant and racist? You're gonna die and you don't affect anyone. You're just like in a retirement home and stuff.
It's a sad thought, but it's there's truth in there for sure. I
Okay,
think
let me ask you a question then, because I know that you're very different than me. I'm very like I'm all techno utopian future. I think last time you said that you wouldn't want to live forever. Is that what
absolutely.
I heard?
Yeah, I wouldn't. No.
No?
Not like
I,
this.
I,
But like this. I don't think I would want to live in this ego, this identity. Um, so
you
yeah.
you want like a better body with like six pack, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, prime when he's competing. Is that what you're talking about? Like you want a new body? Is that
No,
no?
I wanna die at some point.
But that's weird to me. But as well, it wouldn't be in this body as much because I think what will happen in the coming years is we'll figure out how to basically just stop aging. So you'll be like whatever 25, whatever it's like your peak is forever. So it won't be like you're all like old and like decrepit. You'll just be chilling, Lucas Fast, 25, healthy. I also think it'll probably be that you won't even need to work out. Like you can, but it will be like a sort of thing where we can just like mimic exercise with
I would really not like I feel like that feels so artificial. I think that it just feels unnatural, you know what I mean? And
no.
I don't know about you, but I like that I have to work out for myself, for my body. I like that I have to do things that
Of
are difficult in order to feel good or accomplished. Like the idea of
mm,
life where I get everything easily and I would just be 25 forever. I think that would.
that's so sick.
Did you
That's
watch
sick.
the Good Place?
I watched a bit of it, not
It's
much.
like a
Um,
funny like little comedy show. It's
yeah, I didn't.
exploring
I
stuff.
definitely didn't. I think there's like 4 or 5 seasons, and I think I got to like season 2 or
Oh
something,
yeah.
like first episodes. I just,
Anyway,
it's not.
yeah. I'm curious to explore the way you feel about it because you would like to just what you
Keep it
described.
going. Man. Let's keep this going forever. And I'm even on a weird level where I like most people, even like most of the like techno future weirdos, whatever. Most of them are like, but eventually you will die. I'm like, no, dude. I think we can just keep it going like literally forever. You know what I mean? Like past the heat death of the universe. That sounds awesome. See, but the thing I don't understand as well is like I think there's two things of it. One is like the Buddhist side of it, where I think most Buddhist people will be pro-death or whatever eventually. But I do think like some people have this idea of like if you live forever, it would get boring. But I literally do think that I could spend 17 trillion years just meditating. Like if I had the time span to do whatever I want, like if you're like, oh, you just have to sit there and meditate the whole time, I'd be like, okay, yeah, cool. That sounds good. I'll do it. And I think maybe that's one reason a lot of people wouldn't want it because they couldn't conceive of the idea of living for a really, really long time. Although I do think most people have like this cope thing where it's like, if you're a human and you're not like IQ below 70 or whatever, like you're not like you're just like a normal IQ person, then you've eventually at one point had to come to grips with the fact that you're probably going to die, especially in the past. Up to this point, there was never really an option. Although there are some traditions that thought you could live forever and did weird stuff, but that's a whole nother topic. But now it does seem like we will get to that point where like if we don't kill ourselves before then, people you were my age, we got a pretty good chance of making it to like where if we don't live forever, we live enough that the next 50 years we find technology that we can live for another 50 years, and then it'll be like that sort of thing where you can just keep leveraging it up. I'm a little bit more optimistic. I think we're literally just going to find a way to just like stop our cells from degrading or like have something that just spawns new cells that eliminates our cancer and like we just like are always chilling out, happy. I don't know where I was going with that, but I do think if you like life now and like realistically, you'll probably disagree with this, but in my opinion, most of what's good about today is the result in some way, shape, or form of technology. There's, I mean, deeply, most of the things that are really important are relationships and your love for one another and all that sort of stuff. But when you go like up a level, like the reason it kind of kicks ass to live in 2024 versus 1824 is because of like modern technology. And, we're talking through the internet on some crazy electricity vibe thing and like just weird things that it's like, I don't even understand how it works, but it's really cool. I can't imagine it not just keep getting better and better and better. And for me, it just seems like, well, yeah, I also don't think heaven is real. Like, I mean, I do think heaven's real, but I think it's not a physical or metaphysical location that we go to after we die. I think it's actually sort of a realization that we're in heaven now, and that it's more a like psychological thing where you're like Jesus realizes that this is heaven rather than afterwards. I don't know where I was going with that. I do.
Okay.
Part of me does think if Jesus was born in Asian culture, you might get offended with me even saying this, but I'm sorry if it does offend. I do think he would have got it would have been like it would have looked a lot like Buddhism rather than
Mm.
the Hebrew version of it. Like I think, Buddha did the same thing that Jesus did, but with Hinduism and went like deep, deep onto the like how to remove psychological suffering and get rid of this sense of self and just be in what is, you know, you could call it heaven, enlightenment, euphoria, Brahman, all these different like names for it, kingdom of heaven and stuff like that. But I think it's kind of here now. And so for me, if I'm correct, then there's like living forever would be that would be the bomb. Like that would be the best thing you could do because you could just live in heaven forever. Anyway, I'll shut up.
I
Talk.
think that you might be absolutizing this reality, like spatial temporal space time. I think that this is very temporal, what we're experiencing now.
But it doesn't
And
need
sorry,
but it doesn't need to be, is kind of my point. You know what I mean? It's temporary, or it has been temporary up to this point. But I think there are animals that can live forever. Certain jellyfish, some people think lobsters, stuff like that. But they do just regenerate cells and they can live potentially forever if they don't get eaten or die because of stabbing or whatever the hell, lightning
I don't think
bolts.
humans will ever live forever.
I definitely
I
think they
think
will.
it's a technological delusion, but I mean, I don't think I would want to if it was possible. And I think what will live forever will be, I'm afraid it will be a degraded version of yourself. I don't know how much you will enjoy that. But I also don't
I
think
will.
it's about
I will.
enjoyment, to be honest.
I will. It will be so, dude. You'll be dead, and I'll be playing PlayStation 742 because it just kept going, and I'll be like in it, and I'll be like, it'll be like in my brain, and I'll be like, "Ew," like I'll be Genghis. I'll just do crazy shit. I'll be like, I'm gonna be Genghis Khan and just like take over Europe. Nah, that seems pretty bad. I don't know if I like doing that, but I'll do something cool. It'll be sick. I'm telling you.
You know what? Did you watch the Guardians of the Galaxy?
I did, but I don't know what it is about those movies. They're super like well written and high production, but my brain can't concentrate on it. I don't know. It's good movie, but
The
is it
the
I don't is
third
it
one,
Marvel?
I think the third one explores this what we're talking about super well. And
Mhm.
the main villain is called Evolution, and he basically tries to do this, like living forever. And he gets like a new
They went
face and
next level
everything.
Christian,
Huh?
huh? They went like next level Christian on it. They're just like science is bad, fucking
I
bad
think
for
what they are
humanity.
trying to present in this movie is that it's a it's a movie against perfection and it's for wholeness. So perfection is like this idea of like creating the perfect society, like eugenics with the
Mm.
Nazis, for example. I think Harry Potter
Oh,
does a similar deal, where it's like you
Harry
want to
Potter.
have.
Oh, Voldemort? Is he kind of into eugenics? I don't know.
Well, he's like the purebred. He's all about the purebred type of deal.
Oh, they love that shit.
Yeah, they eat it up.
Forgot.
He
Hermione's like the best in the whole fucking movie, and she's a dirty half-blood, isn't she?
She's a half blood, and then you see Malfoy, like his father is also a part of that.
Actually,
Um,
yeah.
Anyway, I think it explores this topic very well. This idea of like, is it good to live
I'll have to
forever?
give it a go.
And then one of
I
the
think I've
lines,
watched it. Mhm.
sorry,
I think I've watched it or part of it, but it was like background, like I didn't pay enough attention, sort of thing.
yeah,
Not Harry Potter, Guardians of the Galaxy.
yeah, yeah. But
Interesting.
but one of the lines that really struck with me and it reminded me of the last conversation we had is that he says, like, this is the end where he's about to like get arrested or whatever, and he's like, there is no God, so I had to
Mm.
step in. Like he takes that for himself. like, like
Yeah.
that's the level of delusion that I think you end up in if you
But
absolutize what you live in now.
sure. But here's my counterpoint to this. You're part of like you believe in Jesus. He was that guy. That was his whole thing. He's like, I am God. Like God is my dad or whatever. So like, isn't the whole belief structure behind the reason that you wouldn't want to live forever is because you really believe this guy when he said those things that this guy said before he got arrested or whatever. Like he was like, look, I'm God. This is about me, blah, 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 blah. I don't mean to
It is different
discredit
because
him.
he claimed that he would rule this reality, like he would rule on Earth or in the Guardians of the Galaxy, like the galaxy,
You
let's say.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
he would stay in that forever. Whereas I'm trying to explain to you that I think that
I think I get
reality.
it though. I
Okay,
just think I
let's
did.
talk about the monk that sets himself on fire, right? He is no longer there. Like he doesn't feel this pain anymore. I think you ascend to it. Like if you go for the nirvanic option, the self-emulation that Buddhism speaks about, I think those people, they would call
It's
it
kind of different.
emerging with God. They don't exactly live forever because they escape temporality.
Yeah, I think it's a bit different in the Eastern stuff like the Buddhism and Hindu. It's actually very like it's actually kind of an interesting look too because like in the West when we hear about the idea of like reincarnation, at least most people they're like, "Oh, that's cool. You can live forever and I can become a dog or a dolphin or whatever the fuck." But in the East, it's actually a bit different where they don't view it that way. They view that whole reincarnation thing as that's like a negative. Like the whole point is to escape it,
Yeah,
but you're
that's what I'm
not
saying.
yeah, but some versions do have like heaven and stuff like that, but it's not, but most of it's not that. There is no God in like most iterations of Buddhism. And but some of them worship Buddha like he's a god, but most of it it's like it's no, it's not God, and you don't actually ascend anywhere really. It's you become sort of like part of the universe in
Yeah,
like
it's
this weird
nothingness.
so yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of them that view like I think in Nomakaya and stuff like that, where they do view heaven and they think Buddha's in heaven playing hacky sack or whatever the fuck and chilling out and having a good time. But I think like my reading of it has been more that it's you're not ascending really. You're sort of just like it's like a really nice bath. You just sort of like into the ocean or
Yeah, I
whatever.
mean, we're talking about the same thing. We're just using different language.
Well, if we're talking about the same thing but using different language, then because I remember once you said like you don't believe that all religions are the same and like it's like there's a
Hmm.
distinction from like say Jesus's philosophy and the other ones.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about the same things but different words, isn't that saying that they're pointing at the same thing?
Well, I was not describing Christianity just now when I was
Oh,
saying
okay.
this. I was talking about nirvana, the nirvanic option, the self-emulation. There's different. Whereas in Christianity, there's an idea of identity. So instead of merging, or let's say what you said, going into a bath or something.
Yeah, I like baths. I'm a
Yeah,
weirdo.
yeah,
I don't
I
know
like baths too,
what
so that's
like a
fair.
really warm one, magnesium salts. Fucking.
Magnesium
Have you
salts.
ever have you ever done the like isolation tanks and that kind of stuff?
No, you
I
have?
already asked you this, maybe. Oh, self-immolation. Yeah. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm ADHD. My dog's
Okay,
looking at me.
let me continue. Let me continue before. So
Yeah. Please. I don't mean to interrupt you.
no,
I
no,
just
but I understand.
I'm like excited or whatever. And
I like
yeah.
actually love uh the way your mind works. Some of my best friends, they also have ADHD. To me, it's entertaining. Like it's
Yeah, I mean it's funny to watch. It sucks for the people sometimes.
no, but I
So
mean
just
it's a
I don't know if you see this one. This guy's the exact same as me. My big dog. Oh,
that's a big dog.
he is big, and he's. You know how sometimes people say like your dog is a reflection of you. He's like the same. Like he's
Yeah.
just most ADHD, fucking where's the ball? That kind of shit.
But I think it's beautiful. Like when I'm one on one with them, it's also not too much usually. And then I can
Mm.
see how they make certain connections that I would never make. Like I see that there's also a strength to it, but I can imagine that's difficult to experience sometimes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially with schooling and stuff like that. I
Yeah.
think I don't know if you've ever read the book God or Escher Bach, but anyway, he was talking about this idea. It's called a like a linguistic map where or like semantic tree is what they call it, like semantic as in word. And he was talking about like just like the different linkages you have. Like you might have like God here and then ecstasy and whatever, and it just like keeps going. And I used to always think that like with the ADHD thing, it's very like mine is just like a further one away than most people. So like most people would they'll think water and then think ocean, lake, whereas my brain just like seems to skip a couple levels and it goes like water, and then I start thinking saliva, pee, and then from pee I'm thinking about I don't know something that seems like pee, like apple cider vinegar, and then I'm like already there where most people are just thinking lake, ocean, and I feel like sometimes, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
There must be like
Um,
an advantage to that type of thinking though. I'm sure there is
sometimes
somewhere,
the
but
advantage,
I don't think the schooling system is made for it. But that's why I don't like the schooling system in
yeah,
general. Anyway, let's go back to Jesus because
yeah.
I was trying to describe
Jesus.
the different ideas about death. So in Christianity, it's more of a relationship, whereas I think in Eastern religion, it's more of a yeah merging the bath type of option. Now, I'll tell you
Yeah, I
very
don't know if
honestly.
that's how they refer to it, but yeah, that's
Well,
just what came to
it's
my.
what you said, but
I know.
I have a lot of trouble. Like for me, the Eastern one makes a lot more sense to me. Like my own ideas about death. Um,
Mm.
like I don't see my identity persevering, so I actually struggle with the Christian idea of the maintaining of the relationship. But I also,
Really?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Because like for me, that seems like the linchpin. Like that's like the main bit of it, where it's like if you put, like I think I asked you in the first one, like would you still do what God wants you to do if you just there was only heaven, like there was only hell and there was no heaven. And like for me, that seems like the linchpin where it's just like without heaven, without you ascending to this other place, the whole thing just kind of
Well,
it
you
falls
keep
apart.
using spatial language, like you keep saying
Mhm.
location and place. It doesn't work like
Yeah.
that. Like you understand that from what you just said.
But I think that's how most people view it, and that's how I do view Christianity, where it is like it's a literal location. It might not be your body is there, but there's this thing called soul, which most Christians whatever believe in, and this thing called soul, it goes to this place, and you're there with
Yeah, but that's like
everything.
it's such a decadent version of Christianity. I don't know where you got it. It's
Decadent.
probably
That's a good
yeah,
word.
it's like a modern materialistic interpretation of Christianity. Like it's
Well,
nothing like what is intended for, or what like most people before like the last 200 years how they viewed it. It's I think it's a bit of a straw man version of it.
oh, and I'm not trying to like paint it negative. That's
No,
just
but
like
I'm
how I.
saying this is your
I I
interpretation.
I started reading the Bible. I think I read it when I was young, but I didn't really
Yeah.
like it didn't really enter my brain. Um, and I haven't gotten to like those bits of it yet, so I'm probably misunderstanding it or whatever. But yeah, that's what I thought most people believe. Like that's what I thought priests believes when I hear them talk and stuff like that. I thought it was just like that
I
was
think a lot of modern
typical
people believe that.
Christian. I think I would go as far as say most.
That's possible. But that's why I'm saying, like,
But
I'm not happy with the state of Christianity right now. It's pretty bad in terms of the understanding of the teachings. It's like I think science.
but so much of it confuses me if you don't have that bit. You know what I mean?
But what are you talking about? Like you're speaking about
Like
as if it's like I'm taking a spaceship shuttle to Mars and that's my heaven or something. Like, do you realize how ridiculous that sounds?
I swear most people I've met who are Christian, they view it not like a literal spaceship, but there's like a like let's say a second realm that's like you don't see it. And when the body dies here, it passes on to this other realm, and then that's where you sort of go. And I don't even think that's like even just looking at like mythology of like old school like Greek and Hades and all that sort of stuff. I don't think that's even too much of a stretch from most things that I've seen people talk about with regards to like religious beliefs and deep level beliefs. But that being said, and I think the reason we had another convo is I think I was saying that I don't really understand like Gnosticism, and does that have some relation to it, or am I just like
Okay,
completely
so
off?
the
Guard?
Gnostics, they're not exclusively Christian, but the Gnostics have this idea of like this reality, what we're living in now, is not important. They're all about the spiritual reality. So they kind of like do away with this, and they, for example, they would speak about that Christians even in that time, and I mean it's true for this time as well, would view God more as like a ruler over the universe. Like the way people, a lot of materialist religious people speak about God now, like he's some sort of guy who's like deciding things in the universe all the time, and he's only ruling over this universe. And so they're saying that's a false idea of Christianity and of religion, and you must discard with that, and you must like ascend. But what they do is they go all the way to the extreme where they completely discard the body, like they would not take care of themselves at all. And so
Uh,
that's more of a Gnostic idea. And Gnosis is this idea of knowing. It's like this higher knowing, like they would have this knowing that the average person wouldn't. So there's quite dark twists to Gnosticism, but that's basically it. Like it's a lot different.
wow.
Whereas
Okay.
what we have now is like a reverse Gnosticism. Like now we absolutize this reality, and a lot of religious people do that. So I agree with you. Like this is one of the reasons I walked away from faith, is because I realized that one science textbook annuls their faith like this. I just
Mm,
realized that the scientific worldview is also quite weak. It's just these two are opposing each other, but I think they're both missing a lot. Whereas I think a traditional symbolic Christian worldview that's like read as the early church fathers read it have a much wiser and a much more profound
okay.
understanding of reality than what.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So I think I said to you by DM that I've started reading a bit of Carl Jung,
yeah,
and so Jung, and I might be getting this wrong. So Jung experts, because there's some people who are into Young, like Carl Jung, they're like into him, like they fuck dedicate
yeah,
their
yeah,
life to like
yeah, all the way,
work.
all the way. It's like a religion.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is.
From what I've read from him is, and this could be wrong, but it seems very similar to this Joseph Campbell idea, who was like Joseph Campbell was like
Yeah, yeah, I know Joseph
I
Campbell.
would call him almost like Carl Jung light. Like he was like basically he viewed things that like there's all these different sort of like meta structures that people have in their mind, and they become sort of like archetypes, although he doesn't use archetypes, that's a Carl Jung thing. But like people have this similar journey, and like everyone sort of goes through this journey, and he called it the hero's journey. And a lot of writers they like base their
Yeah, yeah,
stories
like
around
Star
it.
Wars.
But yeah,
Star Wars used it
I think
explicitly, huh?
yeah, probably. I think one of his things was like almost all stories do it in some form,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like really hard to sort of come away from it. But yeah, like Star Wars is like the classic, like often a lot of people use that example where it's like you I don't like there's like you set out on an adventure and there's something that spurs it, and then there's like a death moment and a rebirth where you come back to life, which is often symbolic rather than like a physical rebirth, and then like you come back, but there's like all these different steps to it or whatever. But it seems like Carl Jung was like saying something similar, where it's like that sort of like there's these great archetypes, and it seems like they're like he's almost saying they're more real than what we consider as real, even
Yeah.
though the way we consider things being real, they might not necessarily be real in that way. But like you can look at different, like ancient stories, like Gilgamesh and stuff like that, and it shares a lot of similarities with other stories that are like far off and different places and probably didn't have that same connection. It, yeah, interesting. What I was gonna say though is what was I going to say? It seems to me that the way that you view Christianity or like religious spiritual beliefs is more similar to the way that I view it on like the Buddhist side. Because like in Buddhism, there's this a lot of people, most I would say, are like very into like rebirth and karma, and like that's like a very important aspect where it's like the things you're doing now are going to affect your future lives. Whereas I take a more, maybe this is an ignorant or naive view, but I view it more like rebirth and karma is like something in this one life, and it's not actually something that happens in the next life, but like awakening or becoming enlightened or whatever, it's like this process of realizing that you're constantly being reborn. Like every moment is you're different from an hour ago than you are now. And like the moment of awakening is kind of realizing that this is just like a consistently changing thing that happens. And it's not about actually like when I die, I'll wake up and I'm my dog or whatever it might be. I'm not actually living for a different life. And then um developing enough merit points or karma or however you want to refer to it to then ascend and become enlightened. That's how I view it. Not a lot of people view it that way. But that seems like it's almost tangentially similar to the way that you view it. I'm not trying to like say that is how you view it,
Hmm.
but more of a question, but it might
Ah,
come out
okay.
like I'm insinuating
Well,
it.
yeah,
So
I
like
think
in your belief, is it more like it's almost all symbolic? It's like a spiritual journey that you go through, and like the kingdom of heaven can be here right now if you just do something
it is
potentially
here in that
spiritual.
sense. Yeah, I think you can definitely psychologically it works. Speaking about heaven and hell here, if you do good deeds, if you behave according to truth, then I think you are going to see heaven on earth in that sense. But I also think beyond this reality, and you spoke about archetypes already. I think archetypes give you a glimpse inside of a deeper reality. Um,
Mm.
I think also at the same time, it's like, I told you I also did ayahuasca, like DMT. And
Oh yeah, that's crazy. That's so crazy.
anyway,
Ayahuasca for me, it's crazy. So
yeah,
long,
it's
like the
crazy. It is
because
crazy.
I've done DMT and like I don't think it's the same, but that it's
It's the
15
same
minutes and it
substance, the active substance.
yeah.
But
I say
anyway,
I don't think it's the same. I think it's different when you take it that way.
yeah,
Like it's like a different thing that happens in your brain or something.
yeah.
Anyway, I don't know.
But to go on with that is that a lot of people that do that, they come back being like, okay, what I just experienced is more real than what I have here. And I do believe that there is a truth to that idea of there being a sort of higher reality above us with perhaps more
Mm,
dimensionality than we have here. And us somehow not going there physically. So we need to escape this language because we're still speaking about going places. You're not going there. Like you're escaping time. You're escaping space. So the language we use right now will never be able to describe it. The language that comes closest is this symbolic language that you're referring to, religious texts, which is why I can read different religious texts and it can resonate with me. I think it's why you said that at some point all the Alan Watts stuff made sense because I think your brain when you were doing these drugs or when you were having your experience was finally not attuned to this reality, but it was finally
mm,
breaking out of that frame, breaking through the filters and realizing that there is something beyond this. That's all I'm saying. And I think that a Christian
mm,
worldview can align with that, and it does so for me. And so, heaven,
mm,
yes, in a way, it's psychological, and in a way that um, I just described, it can be more than that. Where I think that I don't know exactly how it works. I think it's stupid to speculate about it because it's like we don't have the language to speak about. But I do think there is
mm.
life beyond this life that we're experiencing right now. And I think what we're experiencing now is a fraction of that. And I can't prove that to you. That is based on experience, and that is
Sure.
faith.
Yeah, sure. And I'm definitely not trying to be like, show me the proof. Like I'm not at that level. I'm definitely like, I think when I was younger, it was more of like, ooh, fucking show me the evidence or whatever.
Yeah, and
And
I'm not
now I'm
trying to
more like,
convert you either, just so you know.
sure. Yeah, and I don't think you are, but I just want to give that caveat where I'm not trying to like
Yeah,
attack or belittle your belief or anything like that. Fuck, what was I gonna just say? Um, what was I gonna just say?
I do have to
Yeah, I
wrap up
guess
in
one
the
of the
next
parts that I
minute, so just so you know, I have to wrap up in like
yeah, sure, but
coming
like
three
five
minutes, so
minutes
you
or like
can.
okay.
Yeah,
I guess that is one that I do get confused about is like the difference where you say that it will like after there will be an afterlife, but it's not physical. And I guess for me, it's hard for me to wrap my brain around what that could mean as I'm encapsulated inside a physical system. And like
yeah,
even though it is kind of weird because my brain exists inside my mind or whatever, and my mind is like prior to my brain, and my mind isn't really a physical structure, so it is kind of weird.
yes,
So I can kind of get it on that level, and I can't it's hard for me to make the leap of like what that would mean that doesn't invoke the heaven image of what I've already sort of like
yeah.
crystallized in my mind, like the way people believe it or whatever.
I think you need
That
to
makes
break from
sense.
your frame, to be honest, because if we keep saying afterlife, or it's not
Mhm.
that. It's not after. Like it's not how it works. And if you think that that's how it works, then you're still inside of space and time. Like, I think you've had a glimpse of that reality, a reality that is beyond space and beyond time. I just think we're still using our materialist language to understand it, and that's why we're not understanding it properly.
Hmm. Yeah, one of the interesting things about Buddha is when you actually like go into the depths of like what he was explaining, he very rarely explains what it is to be enlightened. Like he'll use words like the unconditioned and the like free from phenomena and stuff like that. But it seems that it's like if you try to pinpoint it super closely in a dictionary
Yeah,
explanation, then you're going to cling to that and you'd be like, oh, I understand it because I've got this concept when
exactly.
it's kind of before concepts. It's this thing that it's like the moment you look, you see it. And then the second you're trying to like, oh, is this it? You start conceptualizing and it's not a conceptualization of something. It's experiencing just the profound nature of reality before conceptions even exist,
Yes,
if that makes
exactly. You're
sense.
getting it. You have to break frame. And I think you can have these realizations and deep meditations, and you don't have to rationalize them. You can just let them be. But I think that,
For sure. And I think that's the way you have to do it, especially if you're someone like me who rationalizes a lot, that it's hard to break free from
yeah,
that
let it
sort
go.
of
We just have to let it go.
nature of it.
And then you can
I
really,
do, for me, yeah, it does still, but like for me, then it's like, well, then I would want to live forever. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, it
I
doesn't
know
matter.
what you mean
I think,
exactly, but you would be outside of time. That's what I'm trying to say. So, like, you're still stuck in this frame of, I want to live in time forever. But I'm saying that you go beyond
yeah,
time, and that's not you exactly. Like, you lose your identity. I think, don't you realize that you're not your identity? Like, you already know you're not your thoughts. You told me that before. Well, you're not your body either. So don't
for
absolutize the
sure.
body. It's a losing game.
And that's one that it always confuses me with the Christian worldview because I actually don't think in terms of like soul. Like I don't know if I believe in a soul. And I do think that like I'm not this identification I have. But then there is this like sort of even whenever you try to explain it, it almost like is the worst way to do it. But it's like this like it's like once you view it, like you view this like almost crystallized little creature thing inside you, and then you realize, oh, that doesn't even exist, and it's just pure emptiness. But it is still like you're the awareness of this emptiness. Or you're not the awareness, you're like viewing the awareness, like even the fact of awareness.
Yeah.
It's like
Awareness of awareness.
it's like experience is happening because things exist, but you're I don't know. It's kind of hard to crystallize, especially I think if you got to go. But for me, that makes it even harder to like conceptualize my previous understanding of Christianity because I always thought people believe there is this soul and there's this thing, and then that's the thing that continues on after you exist. But it seems like what you're saying is so much closer to what I understand
Yeah.
of like
Drop
my
everything you think
experience.
you know. Drop everything you think you know about Christianity. And if you want to read the Bible, read it completely open minded and try to think before you read it like, oh, they're actually not referring to what I think it actually is. Like, it's not literal, especially New Testament. Old Testament is much more law based, like you said already. Um, but
Hmm.
like, try to read it as you would a mystical Buddhist text. That's all I'm gonna say for now. But we can catch up later when.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's a good place to end it. I always love chatting with you. It's
Me too,
always
man.
good. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Thank you. I
Have a
think I
good night.
should let you get on.
Thank you, sir.
Cheers. Good morning.
See you. Good morning.